Hi guys, so today we're going to look at some of the new date and time functions that have just been released in ProtoPie 7.9. Specifically actually just some of the time functions. So now we have date and time functions inside of ProtoPie. As you can imagine, you can prototype all sorts of date and time things. So you could do calendars, you could do schedulers, you could do booking systems, all those sorts of things. And of course, the first thing I wanted to play around with was to create a little app that just says hello to you. So in this little app, it's gonna greet you with good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And we're just gonna use a couple of the time functions to kind of drive that so it knows what time of the day it is. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into the prototype. Okay, so before we get into adding all the interactions, let's have a quick walkthrough so I can show you how I've got the prototype set up. So I've got this scene 1, which is going to be blank. This is going to be where we're going to be adding all of our interactions, our triggers and responses. And that interaction structure is going to make a decision about what time of the day it is. And when it works it out, it's going to pass you to one of the following 4 scenes. So I've got the good morning scene. So let's just kind of preview that. So we've got a little animation of the sun rising. We've got the midday scene, which doesn't really do anything at all. The sun's just kind of sitting there in the middle of the sky. Nice blue sky. The evening, again, just does a little animation as the sun's setting. And then finally, we've got, of course, good night, which is basically when the moon comes out. Okay, so we've got these 4 scenes, which we're going to direct a user to when the prototype has figured out the logic. Okay, so let's go back to scene 1 and we're going to start adding our triggers and responses. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add a variable, and I need a variable for all scenes because I'm obviously using scenes in this prototype. So I'm going to choose one of those. I'm going to call this hour because we only need the hour from the date and actually not the date, from the time itself to drive our interactions. We're going to leave that actually as a number variable. So that's all we need to do there. We're then going to come over to the triggers panel and we're going to add a start trigger. And we're going to set it to start with jump. We want the logic to be figured out before the screen renders because effectively this screen is not going to be seen. It's going to immediately be jumping to one of the other scenes. Okay, so we've got our start trigger set up. Inside of this, we're going to add an assign response. And inside this assign response, we're going to select our variable that we set up, our hour variable. And we're going to come into the formulas window and we're going to open this up. And the first thing we want to add here is the hour, one of the new functions, which is the hour function. So I'm just going to type to find that. So it's the one with the FX icon next to it. So this is basically going to extract the hour from any time we put inside of the brackets. So inside of the brackets, we're going to use another new function that comes with ProtoPie, which is called time now. So we're just going to type that out. And again, we can see that populated in our dropdown. So the one with the FX icon next to it, time now. And you can see that's got its own brackets. Now you'll see that there's these squiggly red lines underneath. And I'm just going to click OK on this. And you can see it's all orange. As if you use ProtoPie a lot, you'll know that orange means there's a problem with the formula that we've written. In this case, that's not true because there's a bug currently in this current release, in this first release, where ProtoPie Studio thinks there's an error, but there isn't actually an error. So you can, for once, you can actually safely ignore the orange. It will still work. Okay, so let's continue. So what we've done here is we've taken the time now and we've stripped out the hour. Okay, so we can actually test that. Let's just turn on debugging and we're going to open preview. And you can see here that it says the hour is 13 because it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in the UK. Okay, so that's all working as expected. Okay, let's turn that off. Okay, so let's continue to build our interactions. So we've now got our time. We need to know when that has been worked out and we need to kind of react to it. So we're going to add a detect trigger. And as you know, detect triggers is the trigger that detects when there's a change in something. So we're going to look for a change in our hour variable. And this is just belt and braces. Sometimes you can run these things inside of the start trigger, but often there can be a delay of when the functions run and it won't necessarily pick it up. So the safest way is to always use a detect. Okay, so we're detecting when the hour variable is changed, and now we're going to start adding some conditions. And this is pretty straightforward from here on out. So the first condition we're going to look for is, so we're going to choose hour, the hour variable. So we're going to look for when the hour variable is greater or equal to 0. Okay, so 0 is from obviously 12 midnight till whatever in the morning. So that's when the morning starts at 12:01 at night. So we're going to look for if the number is greater than that, and if it is, we're going to jump to good morning. So we're going to choose the morning scene. Okay, I'm just going to leave that as let's do a fade. Okay, so now we just need to duplicate this a couple of times. So we're going to duplicate this again. We're going to now look for when the time is greater or equal to 12. And for this, we're going to change it to midday. Duplicate again. And this is where it gets kind of tricky. I'm going to put like 18, so 6 o'clock in the evening. I'm going to put that. I'm going to jump to good evening. That's not strictly true. I mean, I guess it's how you think about it. The sun's kind of like going down about just a few minutes to 5 right now in the UK. Anyway, for prototyping purposes, we'll put it at 6. And then finally, the final condition is going to be 21. And when you get past 9 o'clock, it's going to be good night. Obviously, I go to bed incredibly early. I don't, but there you go. Okay, so we've got our conditions set up. That's all we need to do. We're going to open up preview. Now, of course, as you can see here, it's saying good afternoon because it is indeed the afternoon in the UK right now. I obviously can't show you that it's working from all the other states because you'd have to wait here a really long time, like at least till like 6 o'clock. But, you know, that's kind of the problem. But of course, you can test it. You can test it, you know, in your own time. Just make sure it's working. But I do guarantee that it will work. As you can see, it has detected that it's the afternoon. Okay, and that's it. So that's a quick look at some of the new time functions as of ProtoPie 7.9. And as I said before, you could obviously use these inside of a whole bunch of date and time UI components. And actually, if components are something that you're interested in learning about, then you probably want to check out this next video where I start to look in and teach you how to do UI components inside of ProtoPie.